Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nate. Happy to be here.
Oh my goodness, what a treat. You've got such a wealth of experience, your care for leaders, your writing in the space, and your time with us today is an honor. So we are so thankful for you.
Thank you.
You have a heart for leadership. You have a heart for leaders to be fit. And what is why and through your experience, what has brought you to this place where a fit leader is necessary, and what does that mean?
Sure. Fitness is a catch word for many layers of fitness. There's the physical fitness, there's the mental fitness, there's the emotional fitness, and there's the spiritual fitness that we really explore in the book. There, of course, are many other kinds of fitness we can get to, like financial fitness. But really the heart of the book, or my passion and my co-author's passion, really has been about, if you are physically strong and physically in good shape, you can withstand more, just as with if you're emotionally strong, spiritually strong, psychologically strong, as you say. So as a leader or of your life, or as a leader of a company, you're constantly dealing with lots of stressors coming at you. And it is just much easier to be resilient and effective as a leader if you are fit. And we can explore all the avenues of that.
Well, you hit around the head. Stressors are always coming at you. And I love your philosophy. Of course, it's right in alignment with what we teach at Great Summit, with our 4 pillars of spiritual, psychological, which encompass, of course, mental and emotional health, and of course, financial and physical health. All of those we consider our pillars in our drive as leaders to, if you will, if you imagine a home, and within that facility, that building, are all the relationships we have. And as a leader, we shepherd those relationships. Our relationship, as you had mentioned, spiritual, with our Creator, the relationship with our family, the relationship with our community, relationship with nature and creation, of course, the relationship with our business and those who we get to walk alongside of in our business endeavors. And so being fit is important. It's so important. It's incumbent upon us to be fit. And so I'm so thankful that you've identified that as a central aspect of leadership effectiveness, right? Because we want to be effective leaders. And one of the biggest challenges we face as leaders is understanding how to cope with not only the stress, but also experience resilience, and of course then encompass an endeavor as a leader to build resilience in others as we grow. And I'm a student, I'm a fan, and I know our listener is also a student and a fan. You've had so much experience. I mean, you've been in the with the C-suite. You've been all through the organizational realms of business, with influence and understanding the mechanics of people. And you've identified some key or essential factors, if you will, that are necessary for leaders. And they're your four R's you talk about in your book. And I'd love to just spend some time in this area and talk a little bit about your 4 major R's and really what they mean to leaders, and how to purposefully engage them in their day-to-day. So what's your first R?
First one is reset.
Reset.
So if you think about being hit by a stressor of some kind, the first R is about reset. And the principle is really about focus. So take a step back, evaluate your current state, and then make the necessary changes to align with your goals. And that really is giving yourself permission to start anew if needed. So like if I'm hit with a crisis, before I do, I think a lot of people, we all do, just react and jump in. But the best part about reset is move out of reactivity to proactivity. You just buy yourself that moment to step back. And it could be you're in the middle of a board meeting and directors are hitting you with questions and you're feeling bombarded. You could just reset mentally and say, okay, I'm not being attacked. I'm going to go on offense. It's a whole mindset too that you can play with about resetting. And so I work with a lot of CEOs around, don't let things happen to you in meetings and react and think you're going to change the culture or change someone's mind in a reaction way. Pause. Like maybe this isn't the moment to even talk about that thing that's stressing you with the team. So it's a really powerful concept. I don't actually think people use it enough.
Well, you mentioned something important is to set the what I love about this is resetting the context, because one of the things that we can fail to do is misidentify the context as if it perhaps, as you had mentioned, is an attack on us or something is happening to us.
Right.
And I like to look at it like something is happening through us. So when I hit the reset button, and it's not just, think about as leaders, not even, yes, in a boardroom or with it could be with a customer or employee, it could be at home with a family member, it could be anywhere or it could be at the checkout line at a Subway. It could be anywhere that there may be a conflict situation. And what I love to do is when I, if you will, mentally mindset shift, hit the reset is, okay, let me take myself out of the equation. Let me just step out for a mental moment as an observer. And if I can step out as an observer, perhaps I can have greater dominion over my emotional state, be more self-aware, be able to regulate, and to be able to identify the specific parameters of the direction of this conversation so that I can take in the information and perhaps begin to make a better assessment of the current context rather than being bombarded and feeling overwhelmed.
Yep. There's two metaphors I love, depending on who I'm working with at the time. Everyone has a different style, but there's two metaphors that I think are very powerful about how to step back. One is getting on the balcony. If you're in the orchestra, you need to step back, just go up to the balcony.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Another one is if you're in a room, like a board meeting or a direct reports meeting or any meeting, think of something as in the middle of the table at arm's length, not on you. So these are just different tools of how to reset, even if you're live at something. I think some people think reset is I go away for a week, right?
Yeah, I love that. And I think we go from victim to victor in some ways with that, because sometimes when we're attacked, we feel attacked. Let's just say we feel attacked. And we may be attacked. Yes, it may actually be an all outright, just call it what it is, right? However, by being able to step out and just hit reset, we're able to say, okay, perhaps it's an idea that's being attacked. Perhaps it's an issue. And perhaps I can get in on it and say, you know what, guys and gals, friends, yeah, there's some validity to this conversation. Let's unpack and see how we can take this issue and turn it into a win. That's a much different attitude. And I think that's part of what we're talking about with this reset piece, right? We're talking about, in some ways, the attitude we assume when there's a high challenge situation among us, whether it be in any of these contexts we've already discussed. And of course, you know this, I know this, and many of our listeners know this if they've listened long enough. There's a lot of things you can't control. You cannot control oftentimes what people say and do around you. However, there's one thing we can't control, and that is our attitude. That is how we respond. And I think just by taking a moment and hitting the reset, and I think, tell me about what you think about this, just making it a general practice. Like, it doesn't have to be a high challenge situation. It can just be a situation in general.
I loved your example of a Subway, and if you're in we've all had the experience where you can be at a shop checking out, and you can have this amazing cashier who's just bright and cheery and makes your day, or you can have someone that could really drown your day, right? And so how you react in that.
Yeah, and I found you can make it fun too. Rebecca. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes, and you probably experience this, our listener has likely experienced this, sometimes you're driving on the highway and somebody just zooms right past you, perhaps even cut you off. And the natural reaction would be to be offended or, oh my goodness, this person is going to get somebody killed, and those are valid, certainly, concerns, right? However, I tend to have some fun with it. And if someone's in the car with me, especially my son will be in the car, I'm like, oof, they might really have to use the bathroom. Like, find the nearest quick trap. I gotta go.
Someone might be delivering a baby. That's the other
That's the next one. Yeah. It could be an emergency where, hey, there's whatever. There could be 1,000 reasons that's happening other than whatever the reason is that I'm offended by. And I think giving that moment to hit reset and have maybe perhaps just look at it from the different perspective can change our response.
Totally. Love it.
So that's our first step then in this process, right? First R, hit reset. I love it.
Yeah. And again, these R's are not like steps. They're just things in your toolbox. Think of it that way. Because the order does not matter. The order could be anyone. The second R that we talked about is resilience. And really the principle of resilience is highlighting your emotional and your physical resilience. And that's why I talked about how do you build that mental strength and how do you build that physical strength to withstand challenges, right? So think about all kinds of challenges, and I have a little bit more here, but all kinds of challenges literally fatigue you, right? So cultivating a mindset that views obstacles as opportunities, one you just gave a great example of, or as obstacles as, oh, wow, maybe there's an opportunity for growth there. Maybe there's even a new business model there. So the whole concept of resilience is, are you building mental and physical strength to withstand the setbacks? So I think that's a big one that we explore in the book in many ways.
I think it's an essential. I've talked about it before on the program, and as well as in life, as you know, in leadership, resilience is a non-negotiable. It's an essential. If you were to ask what are the top 3 characteristics or principles that any leader would need to have massive levels of effectiveness, resilience is always in that top 3, right?
And that physical strength, what's interesting is I used to have to travel 200, sometimes 300,000 miles a year. I mean, how I met my co-author, who was my personal trainer, is I traveled all the time. And I got tired of how hard it was to put my carry-on over my head. I'm 5'1", so it is just not ideal for me. And I really worked on building upper body strength. And that's how I met Lillian, and then after working with her for years, I said to her, I'm writing this book someday. I'd love your voice in it. So when you see the book, it literally has 2 voices in it. It's like, I have a leadership concept for 3 pages. There's about a page of Get Your Body, pen to paper, and different exercises. So it's very much a book you could read or you could do. And that's where these concepts.
Oh yeah. And I love the putting yourself into a mental toughness state. I love that language, and strengthening the mind is so critical in the resilience factor. I'll give you a quick fun example. So I for years I taught a course which was an elective course in the business department of one of the universities, and it was business policy. And it was not an easy course, and I, being the kind of person who wants to bring the best out of each of the students, when day one the students would come in. Of course, this was also, let me tell you, it was adult accelerated, so 25 to 65 were the average student ages, and they came in after work. It was 6 o'clock at night to 10. Tough, right? You've been busy all day working, and you got to go 4 hours in this coursework. So first night I would tell students, I just want to set the bar for you. And the bar is whatever, as high as the bar is, that's what we'll reach for. We won't reach, generally speaking, any higher than wherever we set the standard. So I'm going to set the standard as just as high as I know you can go. And that standard is this. I am going to treat this course and your involvement, your experience as the development of academic Navy SEALs. And so eyebrows get raised, and even some students go back to the director and say, "Hey, this was an elective. I wanted an easy class." And of course the director would say, "Hey, look, stay in Professor Nate's class. You're going to be better for it." And here's what I would finish it with. I'm not going to allow you to walk this road alone. We're going to do it together. We're all going to do it together as a team. And setting the tone there, Rebecca, setting the tone as academic Navy SEALs raises that mental toughness bar so that when they face a high challenge situation in that course or beyond, their identity begins to shift. And I think there's an important piece to discuss around identity. How do we identify ourselves? Same with me. I did triathlon and marathon for many years. And there would be days where I would say, man, it is a tough day. It is a tough evening, working late or doing whatever. But hey, Nate, you're an Ironman. You can do this, right? It's so important. And of course, in faith matters, you talk about spiritual, if you're a person of faith and you say, I'm a child of God. Wow. What an elevation in your identity. And I think there's a place for really evaluating that piece in the resilience model and saying, hey, how do I identify myself? As a winner, as a person who is resilient, a person who engages and doesn't burn out, a person who approaches mastery rather than misery, and own that.
Wonderful. Love it. And I just love the setting the tone, raising the bar, mental toughness in the class, and you withstand more. It is so true. It's just as powerful as visualization. If you visualize yourself as being tough or visualize yourself as winning, you have a much higher probability to win. And if you actually visualize doing the activities, you have a much better chance of actually hitting those activities correctly. Very similar. Indeed.
I think of Jimmy V. He was a coach, a basketball coach, and he had his students, his team, start their day with an exercise called cutting down the nets, and they would physically cut the nets. Now, cutting the nets was a symbol. After you'd win a championship, you would cut the nets. And so this visualization of being champions.
Yep. Very powerful.
The physical act of that, engaging in that, participating in that. There's, as you had mentioned, there's research and studies to support the visualization of success as a contributor as an antecedent, if you will, to success itself.
Yeah. Absolutely. So powerful.
Visualize yourself winning. Visualize yourself achieving. Visualize yourself crossing the finish line, whatever that might look like.
Love it. Absolutely. And we forget we have all these amazing free tools at our disposal. We don't always tap into them. I've written about it and I forget sometimes. Wait, I need to visualize this. It will happen. Tell the universe.
So resilience, we know that's an essential aspect of leadership effectiveness or being a fit CEO. What else?
So another R, and there's so many R's, these are just 4 of them, is renewal. And that's really around the principle that says we all have the need for continuous self-improvement and rejuvenation. It's really the child's mind or the open mind or the curious mind. Everything gets back to the mind. And engaging in activities and practices that restore your energy or open up your energy or create some kind of enthusiasm and creativity. And as we call, sometimes you hear us talk about those as juices, right? So I think renewal of that open mind, the curious mind, the learning mind, the self-improvement mind is so powerful and goes from renew to rejuvenate. You notice I love ours. I guess my name's Rebecca. So So renew or renewal, is the next R.
Yeah, boy, this is an area I think that we miss. It's easy to say, I'm going to be resilient. It's easy to say, I'm going to develop mental toughness but renewal, for some reason, the renewal part is difficult for people. And I think in part because sometimes we may feel guilty for taking time to renew. We may have forgotten the benefits of it. We may have even forgotten how to do it. We might have forgotten that it's important to renew so that we can be inventive again to recharge.
Yeah. We talk a lot about in the book how placing your own health, if you will, this complete concept of well-being, the reset, the resilience, the renewal, all of it into the concept of taking care of oneself. It is not selfish. Right. It is not, I'm going to repeat that. Taking care of oneself is not selfish. And of course, we have a chapter, I'm sure many other people do too, but we have a chapter on putting your own oxygen mask on first. And you're on an airplane, it will tell you, put your own oxygen mask on first before you help your child or the person next to you with their oxygen mask on. Because if you're asphyxiated, you can't help anyone. So that is really a central tenet of renewal. You cannot be the leader you want to be. You cannot help others grow, be mentally tough, be resilient if you aren't oxygenated. So put your own oxygen mask on first. And what does that take? So today I've been in meetings all day. I ran outside into my garden and just took a minute to grab some of this great sunshine. That's renewal. Renewal can take 2 seconds. It's not checking into a ranch for 5 days. And I think that's the other part that we talk a lot about in the book is little instances throughout your day to renew, refresh, take breaks, listen to a piece of music, maybe read a poem, do something you don't normally do. Maybe that unlocks a creative part of your mind.
Mm-hmm. It's so important. And I think part of the disconnect or the challenge might be we're so focused on production or results or efficiency or getting more done. And
achievement.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. And what can happen is our achievement can begin to flounder with the lack of renewal and the true rest that we need when we're doing that. And you had mentioned, a ranch or a retreat. That's great when it's appropriate, and I always suggest that to get away for a duration of time to simply just be. I've had some of my best ideas when I've been away on a sabbatical for whatever reason to just simply get out of the minutia. And at the same time, that's not necessary all the time. As you had mentioned, build some margin into the day for a moment of just rest. You can, like you said, I love the vitamin D. I love to go outside and just feel some of that sunshine. Just take a moment to relax. If you have a book at the office, somebody might say, I don't know, it's just weird reading a book in the middle of the day at the office. Oh, well, that's just because it's programming. Let's talk about rewiring some of that programming and giving yourself whatever the margin is that's necessary. We are the masters of our calendar. We can build in margin, and it's okay because that margin will essentially give us greater effectiveness as leaders.
I think one of the things that this is always reminding me of, yet so hard when you're a high achiever, is to remember that we're human beings, not human doings. So it's fine to be. I'm giving ourselves permission to just be.
Totally. Yeah. And for me, I give you an example in the mornings. I'll take my dog for a walk, and I've talked about on the show. Initially, when we first got our puppy, I was a little angry, a little upset because I was like, oh my goodness, this is I'm going to have to walk this dog every single morning. And I'm a numbers person, so I did the calculation on how many days of productivity I would lose over the course of the next 15 years of this dog being alive. And it might sound trivial and even comical. And I suspect you're not going to be surprised that the relationship grew on me tremendously. And I began to cherish those mornings as our quiet time together. And it was time for me to simply renew every morning. And now I couldn't imagine a day without him. In fact, there will be days where perhaps the dog is in, the boarding because they spend some time with other dogs. I'm like, oh my goodness, my buddy's gone. I'm gonna have to go on my walk by myself. And Rebecca, it is rain, sleet, snow, shine. It was, 6 degrees this morning here in St. Louis, and we bundled up together. I put my doggy bundle. She had her whole bundled outfit on. I had mine on, and we went out and we trudged around in the snow and explored. And it was really just beautiful. We watched the sunrise together, and there was a barge down the river. We're right by the Mississippi River, just watching that as the sun rose. So peaceful, so renewing. And I wouldn't give it up for anything, now. And it's amazing. And I guess the point I'm making is sometimes we have to challenge our own self-limiting beliefs that we think something is a distraction, or perhaps it is going to take away from our ability to achieve. And when in fact, it is just what we needed. And it could be anything. It could be more time with the children and just renewing with them. It could be a moment with the spouse in prayer and reflection. It could be so many different activities that are designed to help you renew. Explore that.
Yeah. And I think part of that challenging our own self-limiting beliefs are things like you can be a leader and healthy and happy and successful and beautiful and all those and make money and versus people think I can't be physically fit and successful. People have all these self-limiting beliefs. So we demystify that.
We do. And I think we don't have to do it alone either. We can do it in concert with others, with our cohorts and our coaches and those around us, to observe where it's working. I love to do case studies, if you will, on individuals and see how those pieces are working together. And I used to use the terminology a work-life balance. Of course, you've used that, I'm sure, and it's just very common. And I've eliminated that terminology because it's rare to actually have perfect balance with anything. However, there is room for harmony and mastery. We can have work life and physical and spiritual and emotional, mental, financial harmony rather than balance. And I think that harmony is exactly what the doctor ordered when we as conductors of our lives are conducting, you had mentioned earlier, the orchestra, conducting the symphony of our lives. We want each piece to be a masterpiece. And sometimes some instruments play loudly. Sometimes they don't play at all. Sometimes they're quieter in the background. Sometimes they need tuning, and so on and so forth. And that's really just all the elements of our life.
When I get asked that question about do I believe in work-life balance, I say I don't actually believe in that sentence. What I believe in is having a whole life where you have all the parts. And in your symphony example, there's also going to be disharmonious music that is super modern, and there are moments for that, because nothing can be everything all the time. Days ebbs and flow, and the reason why I like work-life balance, but to be in balance all the time is impossible. Yeah, you have to have disbalance, if you will, or imbalance to actually appreciate balance. So you need all the yin and yang of it all.
Yes, I agree. And the wholeness aspect, I'm glad you brought that up. That's exactly the terminology that we use in our educational experience, Great Summit, for reaching for wholeness in these areas of life, and if you will, an integrity. Wholeness is having an integrity within these domains, these relationships, these parts of our lives. And also in that wholeness, having grace on ourselves when perhaps, as you had mentioned, something may be out of alignment. That's going to happen in life. That's also part of, I think, what you're talking about, this renewal process.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the book, every chapter ends, or almost almost every chapter has a section called immediate and imperfect action. So the chapters are super short, 3 pages or so. And then there are a few bullets about immediate and imperfect action to try and get the habit or the concept into your life immediately and imperfectly. Or there may be our 4th R, which is reflection, to reflect. We might have a pen to paper exercise. And this principle of reflecting emphasizes the importance of regularly assessing, like, where am I? Where am I against where I want to be? Progress? Or am I learning from the experiences that am I having? And am I making adjustments consciously? So it encourages the way we wrote the book, literally with the end of each chapter, a habit of introspection and mindfulness. So what's fun about the book is it has different concepts that we also practice in every chapter. And I think that then you understand better what's working, what's not working, and where you are in your journey.
Absolutely. That last concept of reflection, of course, as you had said rightly, there's so many R's, if you will, and I'm a P guy, so I like P's. So you just pick a letter, right, and roll with it.
I'm going to call you Pete instead of Nate.
Yeah. So yeah. So reflection. Wow. This is also a time thing, right? We've got to build margin to reflect, and I love, especially when there's a break in a cycle, or a season is ending, or a month, or a project. Take time to reflect. Take time to reflect. And here's what I think: celebrate some wins. And the reflection, we rarely take time to celebrate the wins. And we're not talking about, basking over the next month of, hey, team. But however, give ourselves some credit. And as this, again, high achievers, right? High achievers just spend an inordinate amount of time looking for the next goal and not taking a few moments to walk in gratitude, appreciation, reflection on all of the different pieces that have contributed to the success. And here's the other thing about success, I think, and this is where I think gratitude in reflection is essential. I think that gratitude is the great antidote to most of our ailments that we face when it comes to our mental or emotional self-limiting beliefs that you talked about earlier. And gratitude in the little things. For example, the fact that I can breathe contributed to the fact that I can communicate. The fact that I can listen and hear contributed to the fact that I can learn. The fact that I can see allows me to see the individuals and the situations that have contributed to the victory that we have among us. Very basic gratitude. My go-to every day when someone says, "Hey, how you doing?" I always say, "I woke up." It's a good start to the day. And of course, as a person of faith, either way, it's a win. Now, I'm going to say
my body worked. It worked.
Yes, it worked. What an amazing machine. I think about this all the time, Rebecca. What an amazing machine. It's now, granted, it has, it needs some repair and maintenance from time to time. And if we take good care of it, it's going to take good care of us. What an amazing machine we are as a human being. And just reflect on that. Reflect on that daily. I love to reflect on it every single day. What makes this conversation possible between you and I. Reflect and have gratitude that we can have this conversation together.
Yeah. So appreciate it. Yeah, I end most of my notes with in appreciation when I send a note to somebody in work, business.
Yeah. And so that's such an important, if you will, game changer in the conversations and leadership and the fitness. Of course, your Fit CEO book and model is how we show up.
I always have to do this when you say it. I have to show you
Yeah.
the book.
Fit CEO. You got to show the book. Show the book. Of
It's
course, we'll have
one
it.
word.
We'll
Fit
have it.
CEO.
We'll have it in the show notes where people can find you. How we show up is such an important piece. Again, back to the identity thing. I was just talking with a friend, and we were talking about our matters of faith, and we were talking about how we represent ourselves, and we were on the discussion of Jesus, which is just about everybody knows who Jesus is here in the West. Not everyone everywhere, and I had mentioned that sometimes some people the only Jesus, and we were talking about the love of Christ. The only Jesus people will ever see is the Jesus in you, and represent that love, that caring, that desire to see the best and God's best for people. And depending on how you show up, and just think about it, if you're listening, think about how you show up. Think about as a leader and reflect on that for just a moment. Do you show up as a shepherd, as someone who's guiding others to their very best? And your energy, our energy, Rebecca, you know this, our energy is contagious. And I'll be the first one to tell you, my energy, I'm a pretty optimistic guy, but it's not always the case. Sometimes my energy is, I'll go home and sometimes I don't bring my best to my family, and I need to make sure that I bring my best to my family, but sometimes I don't, and I miss it. And I have a choice. Back to the choices. I can just chill in the garage for a couple more minutes and bring the kind of energy as I reflect on my day in the past, as I reflect on the remaining of my day, to bring the kind of energy that's life-giving for all who I shepherd. That's part of that reflection process that I'm so glad that you have written about in your book.
Yes. And in my faith, when asked about God, if someone says, well, how do you find God? Where is God? We say it's in each person's face you're looking at.
Mm. Yeah.
So a lot of fun things. In the book, we have 5 sections, and they are commitment and boundaries, intention, self-care, and heart. So we end with heart. But one of the things that keeps coming up for me as we're talking is a fifth of the book is on boundaries. So part of self-love is also having boundaries of, maybe if you are having a bad day and you're not at your best, it's okay not to show up for something, to cancel something. It's okay to take something off your calendar, because if you're not going to show up at your best, and this is the hardest one for me, saying no. I say yes. I'm a yes person. Yes, I'm going to show up. Yes, I'm going to be there, and I commit and I follow through. So I think one of the things that I've also learned is looking at my calendar and saying, what can I, saying no. People, oh, you have to be there. You have to be there. Come. But if it's going to drain my energy, and therefore I will be there, but not at my best, maybe I shouldn't go. So these are all these balancing, counterbalancing parts of the equation of showing up at your best, is also when maybe you should not show up so you can rest. So I think these are some of the harder ones for people. So the book actually has a lot on boundary setting.
I love that. Yeah, I think boundaries are essential, and boundaries are based on our values. So I think starting with, hey, what's most important to me, my principles, and then building our boundaries around those and staying true to them. I think that maybe sometimes people won't necessarily agree with their boundaries, but they'll respect them when you respect and you require them in your daily walk. So huge, very important piece to the journey. And I'm so glad you brought that up, to identify what those boundaries are and communicate them to yourself and to others. And it is difficult. It's difficult to cancel a meeting or to say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make this. However, if you are unable to bring your best, and I look at it like this, sometimes we look at our mental or emotional fitness or health in the moment as though we can compromise it because it's not physical, if you will. So I'll give you an example. Say you broke your arm and you were on a baseball league. Okay, you're not going to be playing until your arm's healed. Right? And it's completely acceptable. There's no one who's ever going to say, oh, what a loser. You should still try to play with that broken arm, right? Because you're right. Yeah, you're not going to be effective on the team. However, when it comes to our mental or emotional state, if we're having a broken arm, if you will, proverbially, if there's something going on, and we've got to take a quick step back because we need a little healing in a certain area, why are we so much harder on ourselves, and why are others judgmental of us in that space? It shouldn't be the case. We should honor that just in the same way as the other areas of our health in physical terms.
Well, it's not visible. That's what's so hard, right?
Yeah, it's not visible. That's really what makes it. That was what makes it more challenging. However, we feel it.
Yep.
Yeah, we feel it. And I think back to the boundaries, being true to that and saying, hey, today I've got a broken arm, if you will, so to speak. And I need that to heal. I need to get that some rest. I'll be better tomorrow. There's sometimes, and playing that out, maybe there's a conversation that you were going to have. For example, maybe there's an email you were going to send and you were not in the proper state. You was the halt. You had to halt, right? You were either, what was it, hungry, angry, tired, or lonely.
Yeah.
And we have to, and just stop. Don't send the email. Wait till the morning. It's so much better, unless it's, of course, urgent, and perhaps have someone else vet it, or run it through your AI assistant and let your AI assistant reformat it.
Tell your AI assistant, please make this friendly.
Yeah, here's where I'm at right now, and because I have yet to, when my emotional or my mental state has been compromised, or I'm in an unhealthy place in the moment for whatever reason, I have yet to see something I've done or said that was better than when it would have been said or done in a healthy emotional and mental state.
And so hard to be, again, self-aware.
Yeah.
So then we have to give each of ourselves grace. That's probably being kind to ourselves is probably one of the harder parts of this. To also know none of us are perfect, which is why we end every chapter with immediate and imperfect action.
You bet. Yeah. And listen, if you're listening and you're like, oh my goodness, I actually just sent that text and I was in an unhealthy mental or emotional state, and I may have worded it differently if I was in a better state. There's no harm in saying, hey, I wasn't in a great place when I sent that to you. Forgive me. Here is how I would have said it had I been there. And we can receive grace and we can give grace. And if someone's not willing to give you grace, then perhaps there's another boundary that you can consider through some reflection in that relationship. And at the same time, it gives us an opportunity to do better and improve with every interaction we have. To be what? Fit. CEOs. How about that for another plug?
Yeah. As the leader of your life.
That's right. As the leader of your life. Rebecca, what a treat. What a treat to have you on the program and share these nuggets of wisdom with our listener.
Thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be here. Really appreciate it.
You bet.